Now turn your body around so that the back is towards you, and we're going to push this back piece in towards your front body piece, so it's out of the road, and we're going to work on this outer edge of your lining. Now, grab your lining with your slip pockets attached. You need to mark the centres. Top to top, make sure you are putting the top, you don't want it round the wrong way. Pin right sides together. If you're making the small one, you need to leave an opening along the bottom there if you don't want to turn through your zipper pocket. So don't forget to leave that opening on one of the sides at least. Okay, don't do what I just did. Okay, so if you end up with a bit too much gape there, you need to ease it back. There. Now that you have your gusset, your body lining pinned to your gusset, check that you've only pinned it to the one piece all the way around. Everything looks good. So now we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch this lining seam with a 12mm or 1/2 inch seam allowance. The bigger seam allowance will give it a nicer, neater, more closer fit. Looks better. Now to stitch my body lining, I'm going to remove the flatbed from my machine because I just think it makes it a little bit easier. Remember, we are stitching a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Just work slowly. Remember that you would leave an opening along the bottom here if you were making the small one for turning. So you would have started your seam over near the corner. Okay. Just inspect your seam, and if you're happy with that it's nice even, then you can go ahead with the rest of the assembly. But if you've gone wonky anywhere, just restitch it, do a second row and fix up any areas that are wonky. I find it easier to go wonky on the smaller sizes. It's not too bad. On the big one it's pretty easy, but the smaller ones, especially when it gets close to there, it'll pull a bit and it's easy to go wonky. So I just go back and correct that. Now we need to trim your lining between the two gusset seams. So from there around the top back to this gusset seam over here. We're trimming it back to 1 centimetre. You need to be fairly accurate with that. I do eyeball it, but if you're not really confident with your accuracy eyeballing, then I suggest that you go around and mark. Put a few marks where 1 centimetre is, so you know how much to cut off. That is 3/8 of an inch. So for those not using metric. Make sure you're not cutting anything else other than your seam allowance. Go a little bit beyond your seam there on either side. Now we're going to be attaching the lining to the front body piece. So to do that we need to pull our back piece back out from being shoved in there. Bring it back out of the way. And now all we're doing is grabbing this lining piece and attaching it to the front body, just clip into place. We're going to clip down to this seam on both sides. If it pulls a bit too much here, you can always stick a pin in to help hold it, especially on the smaller sizes. If those those seams won't line up exactly. Don't worry about that either. It's just because your lining is a little bit smaller than your outer body. Stick a pin in there if it's pulling a bit too much for you. It's quite thick when stitching this next piece. So if your machine doesn't like thicknesses, just start back from the two seams, back where it's not quite so thick, and just stitch from there. That'll be fine. It'll do the job. No wonder I get bent pins. Okay, now going to stitch that from seam to seam, gusset seam to seam, with a 1/4 inch or 6mm seam allowance. Doesn't have to be particularly neat, because it'll never be seen, so that's fine.